Okay. Well, good evening, everybody. I'm John Schuster, President of KGI, and it is my pleasure to welcome all of you this evening to the second part of our 25th anniversary celebration. And it is wonderful to be able to be here in San Diego with all of you, faculty, staff, alumni, advisory board members, and all of you who have come to know about KGI as an institution. And especially about our over 2,000 alumni that are really demonstrating how our impact is developed and grown over all these years. It has been my pleasure to be the president of KGI for going on my 20th year, and it is remarkable to see the progress that we have made over that time. And I will say, we do all of our teaching that's team-based, hands-on, and real-world, as the students can tell you. Because they often complain how hard it is when things go on in teams. And of course, I'm extraordinarily sympathetic to that. But I want to say that Dr. Grant is laughing. I would like to make it clear that our original mission as an institution, when we were founded in 1997, was to build the educational bridge between the sciences that were going to dominate the 21st century and benefit to society. So we initiated programs that were totally focused in that arena, and we have been true to that mission to this very day. And it makes all of us immensely proud to see the success that you alumni have had, and the impact you're making on the industry, and the lives you're saving and making so much better. So I want to thank all of you for being here, and again, help us in our celebration. I want to just again, give a little bit of a summary. We'll show a video, so I don't have to talk too much about our progress. The stuff we've done over the last 25 years. But I do want to say again, it's a thrill to see all of our alumni, and they are the demonstration of our success. So thank you.
Hank had a vision. He had a vision of the engineering education model applied to biology. He had a vision of applied life science, of starting an institution that would be unique in that the only thing it did was applied life science. And he stayed focused on that all the way through, no matter what people said.
In the beginning, the forefathers of this place decided that we're going to create leaders in this industry. One of the best things they did, in my opinion, was combine the MBA-type courses and the biosciences courses.
The Keck Foundation had connections to the Claremont colleges. They were willing to make an investment in something that was good, something that had promise, and something that would change everything. And there's no question in my mind, KGI and its curriculum and its approach changed everything with regard to education in applied life sciences.
I'm very confident that the initial approach that we had when we started this institution, that the education was going to be team-based, hands-on, and real-world, is very, very unique and special.
What President Schuster has done is provided kind of visionary, forward-thinking leadership that an institution has to have. And I think most institutions are backward-looking, and he is willing to take cutting-edge ideas and go forward with them and be brave enough to think about having those ideas and then to pursue those ideas and make them into reality.
Our faculty are deeply committed to the success of our students. They go the extra mile, whether that's going on countless trips to companies for our projects, to designing a state-of-the-art curriculum, to teaching a variety of areas. They're just tremendous.
Every student who comes here because they have a specific plan in mind. They all want to, again, make a difference, be leaders. They have such motivation, enthusiasm, positive attitudes. It's really a joy to interact with those students.
We're growing very steadily right now. We have programs that are having major impact. Our brand is increasing. We're getting just outstanding students from all over the world. So I see ourselves increasing our impact dramatically in the next few years.
I'm very excited about KGI. KGI has the opportunity to be the leader in life science education here in the United States.
It's been just a tremendous first 25 years for KGI, and we're excited to continue to lead and innovate over the next 25 years.
You should know I paid Dr. Bernstein to say those words about me. They're not true. But I do want to say that this is the second of our events that are for part of the celebration of our 25th anniversary. And we began with a gala a few weeks ago on campus, and we are continuing it through this year with a special set of seminars and public gatherings. And it is a real honor to be able to begin that series this evening with Dr. Kiana Aran, a faculty member at KGI. So it is a special honor to be able to do that. She is an Iranian-American biomedical entrepreneur who is an associate professor of bioengineering at KGI, and she is the co-founder and chief scientific officer at Cardea Bio, a biotechnology developing next-generation bio-integrated electronic chips for precision medicine. We especially recognize the other members of Cardea here as well this evening. She is also the technical founder of CRISPR QC, a biotechnology company that develops analytical tools for CRISPR, and is a pioneer of combining CRISPR with modern electronics. Among Dr. Aran's many accolades, she has been recognized within the scientific community by the Clinical Omics 10 Under 40 Award, Athena Pinnacle Award in Life Sciences, NSF Career Award, Nature Research Awards for Inspiring Women in Science, Scientific Achievement categories overall winner in 2021, and Distinguished Engineering Medal of Excellence from Rutgers University in 2022. Dr. Aran is joined by Dr. Paul Grint, CEO and a member of the board of directors of Amplify Biosciences, which merged with C3J Therapeutics to form Armada Pharmaceuticals. Dr. Grint has more than 2 decades of experience in biologics and small molecule research and development, including the successful approval and commercialization of products in infectious diseases, immunology, and oncology therapeutic areas. Dr. Grint has also served as a in many senior management roles and is currently the executive chairman of Cardea Bio and a board member at Amplix, Inhibicase Therapeutics, and Synergen, a Claremont company. Especially Dr. Grint and I were just reminiscing that we've known each other going on our 20th year, where he has been a really key advisor to KGI and how we develop our curriculum. It is a real pleasure to welcome both of you.
Thank you, Shelley.
Take my coat.
I wouldn't dream of it. So good evening, everybody. Really appreciate you being here. Hopefully we're going to have a fun discussion this evening. So as you've just heard, obviously Kiana will spend a lot more time talking about her career and her interest in science. You heard a little bit about myself, but yeah, as Shelley said, I sit here today, associated with KGI on a number of fronts. One is having been on the advisory council now just over 20 years, now still on the corporate relations board. Privileged to have met Kiana about 3 years ago when I stepped in to work with a number of the executives at Cardea as the chairman of the company, and obviously got to know her well over the last 3 years, and I never cease to be amazed at her drive and her passion, and that's what we want to hear about tonight, with respect to that. So what I'm going to do is we have a number of questions that we're going to run through. But, at some point, obviously, we'd love to have questions from the audience. So if there's anything specific, please raise your hand in the middle. We're happy to do that. But also, once we finish this, at the end, we'll open it up more to the audience. So we just heard, Kiana, obviously, that you've won a number of awards, but I know you've just literally flown back from the East Coast. So maybe you could just spend a moment talking a little bit about what you did at Rutgers and what happened there before we get into.
First of all, let me thank all the audience who came here. Many familiar faces and many people who I have never met actually in person or have been, communicating over Zoom. Holly, many other people, and it's just such a pleasure to see you guys in person. Dina, yes, I was at Rutgers to receive the Medal of Excellence for Distinguished Engineer Award. And it was amazing to see that, my work was recognized. And I think if I'm standing here today or sitting here today right now, it's because of all the people who have helped me and throughout this, journey of becoming a faculty, also becoming an entrepreneur, working with Cardea and CRISPR QC, and also the opportunities that this country have provided me, the institution in this country have provided me, and I am aware of all those opportunities. So that was it was a good moment, especially that I was the second woman to win that award since 1960, which was sort of great things to have. But I also wish that it brought more awareness that there are many other women that they're doing outstanding things all across the universe, and then their work should be recognized. So my effort will be moving forward to help those women also for their work to be recognized, and that's my mission.
Good to hear. I think we'll come more to that a bit later. So, when did you know you wanted to become a scientist?
Okay, that's a question.
And everyone in the audience, you need to be thinking about this before you do. It was about a year ago. Somebody actually asked me that question myself, and I sort of ummed and ahed and went away, and it took me a very long time to actually go through back in my mind and realize when I did. I'm not, but it's Kiana who's going to tell you that.
I actually don't know. It's a journey. It's if I want to think back and think about when I got really excited about science, I should go back to my childhood, and my parents were both teachers, so the education was very important, but it was a path that was designed for us. It wasn't like I chose it, and to be honest, it was the only thing I had back then. I mean, being born in a country with many limitations for women, we had nothing else to do, just school home. And so science was basically all I had. I tried to do different things. I tried to paint. At some point, I tried to figure out, other ways to keep myself entertained, such as I became a shooter. I was competing in national shooting competition. And because that was the only sport that we could basically leave the country and compete with Islamic countries.
And you have a lot of medals, I understand, which probably virtually no one in this audience knew.
Yes, I normally don't talk about it because being Iranian and being a shooter is not the best combo.
Especially not a faculty meeting.
Yes. Yeah, so I think it slowly became something that I could find my freedom in, because there's many limitations. I was born in a country, of course, that many of you know, that women had a lot of limitations, and just because they're women. I was also a minority, so that meant that I had other type of limitation because my parents had to hide their identity if they wanted to keep their job. So I had limitation from home, where when you go to school, you can't talk with these people, you can't make friends, you can't invite anyone home. So there was a pressure from home, and then there was a pressure from society. But being, able to immerse myself in books and imagine things and just be free in my thoughts, I think it just gave me a feeling of no one could tell me what to do, or no one could control my life, because everything else was controlled and predefined for us. So this is how it started, and I started enjoying science, and then my path took me to, coming to US, and of course, trying many different things, and I think I truly identified that I wanted to become a scientist early, late my PhD, early my postdoc. where I just started enjoying not only imagining things, but also taking action and doing it. Because back in Iran, I could imagine many things, but I had no resources to basically apply them or take actions. But here I could do that.
So how old were you when you came to the US, and how did you come to the US?
So I was 19, mid-19 when I came to US, and I will write a book about my journey in coming to US. I don't want to talk about it in details, but that was as many of you know, it's not easy for women in Iran to leave the country. You have to either be married or you have to travel with your dad, so you can't get a passport as an individual, single woman. So when I was 18 years old, I got accepted to college. I was doing electrical engineering back then, and it was then that I realized there was nothing else I could do in Iran. There was I have tried everything, but there was always, you go up, and then you hit a wall, and there's nothing more after that. So then I decided to move to US. I tried for a year and a half to leave the country illegally, many different ways. I will not talk about the full story, but I want you to know that even till today, when I travel, and I have been a US citizen for the past 15 years, every time I show my passport, I still feel my heart beating in my mouth because of the tremendous stress that I experienced trying to leave the country. So it's fun. I don't know why I was so brave. I'm not that brave anymore, but so I tried 3-4 times, and every time I would come back, my parents would tell me, "You can't go anymore. That's it. You're staying here." And I would go on food strike. So I won't eat for 10 days, and it gets to a point that they had to let me do what I wanted to do. Yes.
So where do you think that courage came from to repeatedly keep trying to leave?
Well, I wanted to find hope. There was no hope back then for me. Like living in Iran, I didn't know who I was going to become. So I had to leave the country one way or the other. I need to say that, at the end, after failing a few times, I realized I was really dumb in just changing my passport or doing those crazy things. I was really dumb at those type of things. The last time when I came back, I'm like, okay, I have to figure out a way to make my life in Iran. But I was depressed. I could feel the depression. Around the same time, to be honest, a few weeks after making that decision that there was no way for me to leave the country, I received a package from Kentucky Consular Center. And every time I talk about it, I still feel the chills. It was a green card lottery. So my dad was applying every year for green card lottery. And it was by chance. Sometimes, the government would, if they see the address that was to Kentucky Consular Center, they would not allow those mail to go out. And they would not, if there is a mail coming from US, it's really random that you would get those mails. So when we opened the package, I didn't even know what green card lottery was. I'd never heard about it. And my dad started screaming. And apparently he was applying for it every year. And even that year that he knew that I was trying to leave the country illegally, he didn't give up on applying. So he applied, and that was the year that I was the only family member who got the green card for lottery. So my interview in Abu Dhabi was 5 days after 9/11, and Iran was amongst the first 5 countries that was identified as terrorists. So I'm like, oh my God, this is not going to happen. But thank God, when we went there, everything was fine, and I got my visa pretty quickly. And I came to the US 2 weeks later. I got my welcome letter to America and my green card. And a few years later, I became a US citizen. So I think all of that journey, all of those failures, which made me sort of thick skin, was meant to happen. I was not meant to become an asylum in European country, because I don't think I would have had the resources or opportunities that I have in US if I went to any of those countries.
So how did you pick the direction of your science, combining biology, obviously, with electronics?
So back in Iran, if you were good in math and physics and science, you would become an electrical engineer. If you were good in other sciences, you become a doctor. So families, if they wanted to, to be proud of their children, they should have an electrical engineer or a doctor. So I'm sure for those of you who are Iranian, you can understand what I'm saying. So this is why I picked electrical engineering. There was no reason behind that. And in Iran, when you go to college, you have to really study hard because public universities are the best universities in Iran, like Sharif University, Tehran, Shiraz University. But the entrance exam is so difficult. If you got in and you pick one major, you cannot pick multiple majors. You pick one major, and if you got in, that's it. If you wanted to change major, you had to go back again and take the exam again. So when I came to US, I thought it's the same thing. So I transferred some of my credits to City College in New York, and I just stuck to it. And I actually didn't like it that much. And I was doing well because 90% of our classes were basically guys, and I wanted to not fall behind. So I wanted to remain the top student. But what I had was the opportunity to be involved in biology labs. I worked for NASA to program for satellites. I didn't like it. I worked for NOAA CREST, which were monitoring algae using satellites. I worked in biology lab, contaminating cell. I was the greatest researchers killing cells. So every time I went there, all of the researchers, they would just move their cells away so I don't contaminate. And at the same time, I had to support myself financially because I came to the United States with $300. Wow. So there was no way for me to not work. But I used those opportunities. And then I really got fascinated with biology. I took a lot of pre-med courses. I wanted to see if that's something that I wanted to do, which wasn't. And then for my PhD, I decided to do biomedical engineering. It was then when I started seeing, okay, there's other aspect of electrical engineering that I could bring to biomedical engineering. And it was not until my postdoc where I started really enjoying, using my electrical engineering background to combine chemistry, biology, and combine different sciences and try to create, solutions for the problems or tasks that we had to do. And then it became something that I truly enjoyed. I see a few students here. I think the medical device class you took with me, you probably remember that I usually describe or teach, the physiology of the body by electronic circuits. So I draw, electronic circuit, and my student hated me to do that because they did not sign up to do electronic for, to learn about heart and systemic circulation. And so it became a part of my thinking. And even now when I work with CRISPR, I look at CRISPR molecule and I see electronic, I see charge molecule, I see charge interaction. And it has given me a unique perspective and a new way of looking at things and identifying what I can do with my background, electrical engineering, biomedical, to design new devices, bring new solutions, which has been fun.
So then subsequently, I recall you spent some time at the Buck Institute working in the healthy aging field. That's quite different, obviously, to what you've just described. So maybe you can tell us, how did you end up there?
So that's interesting. It's funny how your path is basically forms as you develop your career. So back in when I was a postdoc, my PI ran out of money. So I had to find a way to support myself. So I applied for NIH fellowship, and I was awarded a fellowship for Buck Institute for research in aging. And my proposal was basically a modification of what I did during my PhD, but I modified it for an application for aging. And I got that fellowship, which allowed me to work with a very well-known PI in Berkeley, which was basically exchanging blood between young and old animals to identify the role of blood in aging. So I started working in her lab. As I was working in her lab, I really realized how we as scientists work in silos. biologists did not understand the engineering tools that were available for them to do science much better. And so, for example, we designed a blood exchange system for them because I saw that the way that they were exchanging blood, it was just basically getting a syringe and withdrawing blood from an animal, giving it to the other animal. It was not a controlled experiment. So I designed a pump for them, an automated pump that they could easily program it to exchange blood and basically design, have it on different volume, different percentage. And my PI at the time, she was so fascinated. She's like, we have to patent this. I'm like, there is nothing patentable here. These are commercially available, instruments that we put together. But it was amazing to see how, different fields are working in silos and they're not working together. And I was also tasked to run an assay, which would normally take 2 days. And some of you would probably have heard about it. It was a technique where they basically label the animal using bioorthogonal tagging, which was also a technique that just evolved a few weeks ago by a faculty at Stanford. She was in Dr. Bertozzi. She was in Berkeley at the time. So you would basically tag the protein in the young animal, and then you have to identify them in the rejuvenated tissues of the old animal. So this way you could identify what are the biomarkers that causing rejuvenation in the old animal. And there was a task to run an assay to identify those. And that assay took 2 days. Like, no way I can do an assay for 2 days. So I started developing an assay just to make my job easier. And that turned to a technology, that turned to a click chemistry technology being conjugated with a sensor. And now an assay that took 2 days, we were able to run it in like less than an hour.
Wow.
So this is how I got involved in aging, and I realized that as an engineer, it was sort of my responsibility to help, create a bridge between engineering and biology, or help biologists to basically, do their work much better. So I have expanded that. So now you don't see me in engineering conferences. I normally go to aging conferences or other conferences to identify what is needed in the market, and if there's any solution that I can offer.
So then to move on from that, so how did you come up with the idea of the CRISPR chip?
So if you say CRISPR chip, Ross will be mad at me because I wanted to tell him where the CRISPR chip idea was basically incepted, and we both missed our flights. So it was right in front of a Peet's Coffee, the first Peet's Coffee actually, in Berkeley. I was going to work out, and it was like 6 a.m. in the morning. And I stood by the coffee shop, and I was, amazed by CRISPR. So for those of you who don't know what CRISPR is, basically a nuclease enzyme that was identified and discovered in bacteria as an immune system of bacteria against viruses. So this enzyme has an RNA molecule attached to it. With the help of RNA, this nuclease enzyme is guided to a DNA, to a specific location in the DNA, where then the nucleus creates a cut. And then we have developed this technology to do gene editing. Basically, you on a very precise location in the DNA, you go cut the genome, and then you insert a healthy, DNA to treat many diseases, sickle cell, Duchenne, and other diseases. But for me, looking at this enzyme and this complex, it was like a robot. It was like a nice search engine that could unzip the double-stranded DNA, look for its target, and after it finds its target, then it can cleave it. So the idea came into my mind that, okay, if we could follow the function of this enzyme, this molecule, then we could do DNA detection without amplification. Because if this enzyme can do it, and if we can capture the function of this enzyme, we can do it too. So that was back in late 2016, right before I started my faculty position at KGI. And I was making my own sensors at the time. So it was sort of a lengthy process, but I was super excited and amazed. And I wanted to say something here. I read about CRISPR because I was a postdoc in Berkeley. Jennifer Doudna was there, so we were all exposed to CRISPR technology. But by that time, I have never touched or done a single CRISPR experiment. But today, I'm internationally known as a CRISPR expert, which is really weird. I have worked with a lot of CRISPR experts. I have studied CRISPR on my own. So what I'm trying to say is that, I have never limited myself because I didn't have the background to do something. Because nowadays, I mean, there is so much information available to us that we can just pick a topic and learn about it and become an internationally known expert for it. So sometimes I actually, you know, one of my disclosure is that, you know, I do a lot of CRISPR stuff, but I'm not a biologist. I'm not a molecular biologist. Don't ask me difficult questions because I don't know how to answer those. But I have learned a lot from CRISPR, and I think working with experts, this is the best way of learning. And then you go back to literature, you go back to internet, you go back to all of those resources, and you learn so much, and it's just amazing. So that's how the CRISPR chip technology, and then the story of how CRISPR chip technology, you know, resulted in me meeting my co-founder.
Well, I was going to say, can you maybe talk about how you met some of the other folks here and got involved in Cardea and became the chief scientific officer?
So when I started at KGI, one of the things that in my interview, Kelly really assured me you can, because I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and Kelly assured me that this is a place for you because we want to promote that. And the school was really designed with a different vision. When other institutes were just like not allowing faculties to be involved, KGI wanted faculty to be involved, which was a really, really big thing for me at the time because this is a very unique thing. So thank you. Yes, absolutely. So I was making my own. So the CRISPR chip technology is basically having a CRISPR molecule on transistors, and as CRISPR molecule does its function, then we can monitor that function using this electronic transistors in real time. At the time, I was making my own transistors in Berkeley NanoFab. And when I moved to KGI, I had to really just go back and forth to Berkeley to make those transistors. And out of every 40, 50 transistors I made, 4, 5, maximum 10 would work. So the progress was very slow. And for those who know me, they understand how painful was that for me. So until one day, one of my good friends told me, "Have you heard about nanomedical?" And I told her no. She said they make graphene transistors. I'm like, that's not possible. And at the time, I was actually writing an NSF proposal to improve the process of making those graphene transistors. So I had two options: to go figure out who these guys were, you know, in San Diego somewhere, or to just like pretend that they didn't exist and submit my proposal. And potentially, I would have gotten funded too, because if you serve on government panels, you know that there's not much information about what's in the industry there. But anyways, so I set up a meeting with Brett. Brett, so raise your hand so everyone can see you. So Brett came to KGI to visit me. And the minute he said that he was a physicist, I panicked, because if you think it's hard to convince biologists, it's 100 times harder to convince physicists. So I explained what I wanted to do with the chip, and I didn't want to spend my startup money. And by the way, I still kept a lot of my startup money, Kelly. So I didn't want to, and also, being Iranian, I think that some of it comes from that. If you have some sort of resources, you really want to keep it for like the emergency use. So that's what I was doing with my startup. And when I started, that's the only money I had. So I talked with Brett and I convinced him that this is great. And he was sort of excited about what I was doing because he thought that this was really unique. So they were to give me some discount on the chip, but I insisted that instead of giving me discount, they give me the chips for free, and I will partner with them instead. So I remember back in the days, I used to come to Nanomedical, leave my trunk open, and Brett used to basically put chips in my trunk so I don't have to pay for them. And Ross was basically blinded to that. But anyways, after so it started like that, and I started with one reader. They were selling their readers for $20,000 at the time, and I got the first reader for trial. That's what I was supposed to have for 3 months, which I still have in my lab. That's 4 years later, and I got about 12 more. So, but this collaboration was really great because I had the background in transistors, and Brett actually really helped me with improving the function, understanding how we could, immobilize this protein much better. And the whole process was basically seamless, and I was able to actually complete the whole project within a year. And this is how I met Brett and Ross, and then I decided to, once the results were really promising and we submitted our paper to Nature, I heard about Mammoth and how much money they raised. So I was like, I have to start a company. So then I went to Brett and Ross, and they told me that you need to meet this guy, Michael Hudson. Where is Michael?
Sir.
Yeah. So Michael and I met, and we started NanoSense together based on CRISPR chip technology. And a year later, it didn't make sense for us to work separately because we were really collaborating and working with each other, and the two companies combined to become Cardea Bio. And yes, this is the story of Cardea. And I want to say that I'm super happy that happened, even if it didn't resolve to. I think that was one of the best decisions I have made in my life, to just forget about that NSF proposal and just work and collaborate and not want to have everything for myself, but like share it with others. And it led me to find lifetime friends.
So I mean, I think that, so the CRISPR chip and the paper and subsequent papers, I'm sure, contributed, significantly to you last year receiving the Nature Award for, inspiring women in science. Wonderful, congratulations on that. That award came with a cash prize. I think you also went to London, didn't you?
Not really, because it was the COVID. So
oh, unfortunately, that's a shame. You missed out going to London. But it came with a cash prize. So maybe you can talk a little bit about what you've done with that and Aran Nebula.
Yeah, so there's some sort of background on that. And so the four of us have been on a lot of, me, Michael, Ross, and Brett, on a lot of interviews. And they would ask Michael, sorry, I have to talk about that. They would ask Michael, how does it feel to come from Europe and work in San Diego and tell us about, the biotech in San Diego? They would tell Brett, how does it feel to, start something from your garage? Because Brett started making the transistor in his garage. Or they would ask Ross about, his experiences, all technical. And the minute they get to me, they're like, how does it work working in a male-dominated field? That was the only question I was asked. And it got to a point where when they asked me, what do you think we can do to improve the field? I would say the first thing we need to do to stop asking that question, because you just bring attention to the limitation that is, there's so much opportunities in this land that, we have to shift our focus from just focusing on limitation and making it sound like it's impossible, because it's not. And so my co-founder, they knew about this and how I felt about this. So when I won the award, it was actually Michael who told me that maybe that's a good opportunity for you to start something to promote women, especially in leadership roles. So I invested the award money, which was about $40,000, in starting the Nebula Foundation. And the name Nebula, actually, my son came up with the name because the nebula is where the stars are born. And the goal of the nebula is it's really to do science, to bring solution to the problems that we have, because I believe that science can solve many problems that we have. But the major thing is that, if we're educating 50%, and, now in a STEM field, there's 50% women that are, they are in STEM research. But then when you look at the other end, there's not many of them in leadership roles. There's not many of them in influential roles. And there are some skills that we need to have in order to, play a major role in making those decisions, because I think in order to solve humans' problem, we need both men and women. We need to bring all the great minds together to work on those problems. And this is what we're focusing on in the Nebula. It's the Nebula only focusing on women at level of PhD and above. And we're helping them to basically, with Athena, and Holly is here, we're partnering with Athena to provide some classes. We're partnering with other organizations to provide them with some sort of leadership skills and basically skill set that they need to be more present. So when the next time, if they enter a room and they feel that they don't belong, they don't immediately see that they don't belong because they're not a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes we don't belong because we're lacking a skill set. We don't belong for many reasons. So I think just shifting the focus to the opportunities, training programs that it's there. And we're collaborating with Nature actually. So the first cohort were the shortlisted people for this year award. So we had about 8 members this year, and they're starting their classes now. And I have met them. They're amazing people. I have met two of them. 2 of them are astrophysicists, which I met them in my trip to New York. And we're working with Estee Lauder to actually expand the program for next year.
Yeah, I mean, basically all this is just over a year. It was only just over a year ago that you announced the Aran Nebula. So that's amazing progress in that space of time. Are you pleased with that?
No, it's too slow.
You may get the sense that Kiana is a little impatient at times.
You can ask Kelly. You can ask Shelly when I was asking for a bigger lab space. I was really annoying.
So, obviously, tremendous career so far. A lot of accolades. It's wonderful. But what about the future? What do you want to do? What drives you? I mean, obviously, we understand your passion, and hopefully, a lot of us really concur with you that science can play a tremendous role in the future. But as you think personally, where would you like to be, let's say, in 20 years' time?
I will definitely continue doing science, and my passion comes from constantly looking for hope. And I find hope and freedom in science. But I also want to, be influential in helping women, bringing recognition to their work. And because I think it's if you bring enough recognition to the work that women are also doing, it's a drive, it's a motivation for them it gives them self-confidence to actually do more. So one of my goals is to really help in recognizing the women in STEM who are doing outstanding research, and this gives me hope because I don't see myself just being a faculty. I love being a faculty doing research, but it's not enough for me. I need to do more. I need to be involved in taking my technologies to commercialization. I need to be involved in promoting women, and I have built a circle of amazing people around me that really allows me to go in multiple different directions and do the things that I want to do. So
good to hear. Right, any questions from the audience?
Yes.
Kiana, I wanted to ask you about your dual identity as a faculty entrepreneur. And obviously, an engineering PhD historically in this country has been more oriented towards industry and academia than, say, a science PhD. But thinking about your being both a faculty member and an entrepreneur, obviously one of the crossovers is your curiosity. You're interested in problems and solving those problems. But can you think of an example of where being a faculty member makes you a better entrepreneur, and maybe where being a faculty member kind of causes you to be drawn in multiple directions or torn?
That's a good
question. That's a really good question. So first of all, it's not very common to have a faculty who is also has an official role. So I need to take this moment to thank both KGI and Cardea for allowing me to have this dual position, because I think it has benefited, Cardea having access to talent. It has benefited KGI for having a route. We had many interns from KGI that really learned how the industry works by being a part of it. As a faculty, I have benefited very much from being a part of industry because I have learned how to produce, or how to, especially for me, because I'm a translational scientist, how to actually design a research project and think about product to start with, not a single or a single-use device that gets published in Nature or Science and then dies out, because I think it's a waste of the taxpayers' money to do that. And I think more organizations need to think about this, because no other person than people who are the technology developer, who are the inventor, can also drive the translation of technologies to commercialization, because it's their baby. They have passion to do it, right? So not allowing them to do that, it basically, what happens is that faculties are not going to be interested in patenting their IP. And not having an IP will result in not being able to, raise any money for. So it's something that we are not taught as faculties. And I think as an entrepreneur, being involved in being in a university gives you the opportunity to much better interact with great minds, other faculties, which sometimes in companies you don't have access to that. Also bringing awareness, because as faculties, because we go to conferences, it's easier for us to get access to a bigger audience. We can bring awareness about the existing technology, draw more attention, and at least for me, it has been a win-win on both sides. And I really hope that, I think other universities, I think UC system is starting to move towards that path, allowing, their faculties to also be involved, but we really need more than that. So I think the alliance between government, academia, and university is really required for us to really take that tax money and do something useful with it. Otherwise, it's, I keep saying that over 20 years, in an academic level, we develop this point of care diagnostics, and then COVID hits and there is zero device, zero system in the market. It shouldn't be like that. So I think that the path should be there. And we're also talking with Nature, because all of these major journals that the VCs really trust, they only want to publish on innovation. They don't want to do anything that. So it's I think the whole ecosystem needs to change for this to be a good allyship between academia, industry, and government.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. We're seeing some universities change. The UC system is starting to change, but it's got a ways to go to catch up with MIT. Let me tell you that. Yeah. Other questions from the audience? Animesh.
I was fascinated by the story of the source of inspiration. You started during the late teenage years. In Iran, there are, back up my mind calculations, there were 7.5 million teenagers of that age. What was the wellspring, the source of the inspiration? Maybe some Freudian analysis. What happened at the age of 3, 4, 5 that led you to that? Yeah.
So, well, I was first of all, I was born I didn't say that. I was born in a city that was border between Iran and Iraq. So when I was 4 months old, our whole city was demolished. So my mom had to take me and my brother and basically run away. So we lived in camps for 4 years. And I still remember that every morning I wanted to go to the bathroom. There was a line of 20 people on each floor, because there was one bathroom on each floor in those camps. So it took 4 years for my parents to be able to just start rebuilding their life. So I am not scared of taking risk, because I have gone through, and for 9 years we had bombings and on a night, every single night. This is what I remember from my childhood. So for me, taking risk is something easy, because we woke up not knowing if we were alive, would be alive the next day or not. So I think that has given me also intellectual bravery and act on things that I design. And some of them fail, some of them, succeed. But it has given me the drive to do more, to try more things, and not being scared. Because I think one of the limitations that probably stops people from trying is the fear of failure. And I don't have that. And I think many Iranian women also don't have that. So you see, with the movement in Iran, I think they have reached the point where I was when I was, 18, 19, because I tried to find something to do with my life, but there was nothing. There was really nothing besides science, and science was good to the extent, but I could not live in my head. I needed to take things and ideas out of my head and act on those. So I think the drive comes from there, and I was able to get out of the country, but many of people back in Iran, they can't. And you're one of them people, faculties are trying to help, Iranian women to get to KGI, but it's very difficult. But I think when you reach that point, you become brave enough, because there is nothing else for you to do. So it doesn't matter if you're living in such a society where you have no future, you rather die. So, and I think this is where the bravery comes. It's because of the experiences that we women of Iran has gone through from after the revolution. And I want to say, Iran was not like that before the revolution. We were one of the most modern countries, in terms of education, arts, poetries, and historically very, very rich in culture. But after the revolution, all of this thing has been happening, and it's like we don't have like simple, basic human rights. So that, I think, will make you brave enough to just fight. And we're all fighters.
Any other questions from audience?
Yes.
Your story is absolutely inspiring, and I would love to know what advice you have for women who are interested in.
Yeah. So I have been attending many, meetings and being a member of many organizations. One of the things that I have noticed is that we as women, we're too much focusing on limitation. And it's interesting because my limitation is very different than someone else's limitation. Someone else could be a mother with, difficulties being at workplace. Someone could be a minority. Someone could have, physical disabilities. So focusing on that and just trying to fix the root of the problem, we probably have to have and build our own country, because it's impossible to change something, because these things in societies have been around for thousands of years. It's embedded in the culture. We can't change them overnight. But there are also, living in US, there's so many possibilities, and not trying to judge everything because we're women. I have sat in a room where I felt I don't belong with extensively experienced people. I would come out crying. I would feel, I would lose my confidence, but then I go back and I learn those skill set and I try to get better, and I have experienced many of them. So, because for me, it was an opportunity now to gain another skill set. It was not a limitation. So I think if you start looking at things differently and from a positive angle, from this is a potential possibility for me to learn, then these little learnings, will lead to you becoming an expert in something or gaining more self-confidence. So I think that's one of the major things that I see if we can focus on. It would help us a lot.
Thank you. One last question. No?
Somebody asked, I'll ask. So Vannevar Bush, in about 1947, 48, wrote an essay called Science, the Unending Frontier, or something like that. Endless Frontier, yes. Thank you. That there is a role for doing science in undirected fashion, only driven by human curiosity. Mm-hmm. And CRISPR wouldn't be there unless somebody was interested in bacterial immunity as a general science question. So how do you weigh the two diametrically opposite forces in science policy?
That's a really good question. I actually enjoy the problem more than the solution. This is how, like, when I find a problem, I can't find the solution. It's my curious mind wants to figure it out, and the solution itself is not as joyful as the problem. So this is how I think about it. But if you ask my students and my colleagues, I am a sloppy person. I am the worst person if you put me in the lab. And because I mix a lot of things in my head, and I can come up with great project, and I can put a team together, but I'm really bad in performing. But this has its own good and bad. So first of all, it makes it super interesting. I think because there is no limitation to science, there is no right or wrong way of thinking. One of my first technologies that I invented was an ingestible device that basically it was an electronic device that you swallow and would release the protein or oligos or DNA in the gut. So that was for direct delivery. When I presented that technology, everyone was laughing at me. They're like, okay, it produces gas in the GI tract, and the whole room of postdoc were laughing at me. But we made it work, and the technology it's in preclinical trial right now. What I'm trying to say is that there is no right or wrong on thinking to how to solve a problem. Every mind can think about solving the problem differently, but again, it's that intellectual bravery of going and acting on it. And I didn't have that back in Iran, but I have that here. So everything that I think about that might, that it might work, I will act on it. Payam, my first PhD student, was super careful about like not breaking transistors, and he would control things very slowly. And I would ask him, why are things taking so long? He's like, because I'm trying to like find the right voltage. And I go there and I increase the voltage to the end when the transistor blow up. And I'm like, okay, now go lower. So I think it's a different mindset. And I think if you allow your mind to go wild and use your background to just like imagine things, and especially for our biologists, they have to really discover something. They have to dig into cells and sit behind bench for years to be able, which is, I wouldn't have been that patient, but I wait for them to discover a thing, and then I figure out what to do with their discoveries. And that's what I'm doing right now. Basically finding, biologists with different application and trying to harness their function on electronic. So a different mindset, different thinking, but allow your mind to go free, and it's all about freedom.
So thank you very much, Kiana. We really appreciate it. And
thank you.
So I would like to personally thank both Paul and Kiana again for a wonderful conversation. And it is always inspiring to hear the courage, commitment, and passion, Kiana, that you bring to everything you do, and you inspire, I think, all of us. So thank you for all of that for both of you. So join me in thanking them one more time. I would also welcome, I saw hands move. And I also encourage everyone to spend some time now. Kiana will be available for chatting, as will Paul and the rest of us. Learn more about KGI, our team projects, our activities, are the roles our students can play in your organizations. I just want to say that we are having at least 4 more speakers in our anniversary series. The names are in the little brochure, and there will be a couple more as well. And I want to welcome and invite all of you to join us with those celebrations as well. So again, thank you all for being here. Especially thanks for you again, and please enjoy the rest of the evening.